Boerne has its own bookshop. In fact, it's called the Boerne Bookshop. Hi, I'm Dale Adams, inviting you to get lost. Get lost in a good book in our relaxed and casual atmosphere. We have a wide and eclectic selection in the Boerne Bookshop. We pride ourselves on finding what you are looking for. We do author meet and greets, host writing workshops, and can connect you with a good book club. And your young ones will absolutely love our kids section at the Boerne Bookshop. And while we want you to get lost, we're easy to find, as we're in the heart of Boerne at the back of the Richter Tavern building. We are the Boerne Bookshop.
Boerne Radio 103.9 FM and AM 1500. Coming up a bit later this morning at 11:15, it's Meg Greer with God and Our Dogs. Right now, it's Dale Adams and Ron Cisneros with Ceasefire. And this show is sponsored by the Boerne Bookshop. This is Boerne Radio.
Welcome to Ceasefire, where civics meets civility and engagement meets empowerment. Ceasefire is hosted by former Boerne ISD trustee and owner of the Boerne Bookshop, Dale Adams, and by former Boerne City Council member and local insurance agent, Ron Cisneros. Ready, aim, ceasefire.
Good morning. Welcome to Ceasefire. My name is Dale Adams.
And I'm Ron Cisneros.
And today we have a special guest, Mike Wheeler. He is the chairman of the Kendall County Republican Party. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for coming.
Thanks very much for having me.
How long have you been the chairman? It's just one term?
Yeah, one term. Coming up on 2 years.
2 years now, yeah.
This fall.
And was it fun? You had a fun election last time, Ron?
Yeah, it was fun. Unopposed.
Those are the best.
Those are always the best. Yeah. One reason I want to ask you in is because Kendall County had one of the best turnouts at the last presidential election, and I think that had a big part to do with your work behind the scenes. And everybody wondered, what does a party chairman do at the local level? And so what exactly is it that you do?
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, that election is one of the bigger things we have to do. Yeah. It just depends on which county you're in, but generally, your overall goal is to get Republicans elected. Everybody takes that a little bit differently. I take it like I'm a big tent person. I want to get as many Republicans elected as I can. It doesn't matter which on the scale you are as a Republican. To me, a Republican's better than a Democrat, so I'd rather have a Republican on there. Right. But yeah, we did very well. So we raised a lot of money to then spend a lot of money on getting out the vote.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot on getting out the vote, text messaging, block walking, emailing, phone calls to get out the vote. That's a big thing that you do, is to organize all of that. But your primary goal actually is to get Republicans on the ballot. Like we're in charge of the primary. There's 5 counties in Texas that do not have party chairs. They don't have Republicans on the ballot. You have to have a county chair to have a Republican on the ballot. So we take people's applications in and we make sure that they get on the ballot. But we have a great election administrator who helps us through that.
Yeah. And so most of your work as far as electing people happens after the primary, right? Because you're involved in running the primary, but not so much in the candidates' campaigns.
That's right. Primary is all about kind of procedure and getting them on the ballot and running the primary. And it's not about which Republican wins for us at the party level. As an individual, you can work on individual campaigns, but as the party, we're not supposed to take a view on one Republican over another.
Right.
Not every county does that, but that's what we do here.
Mike, on the local side, when we're talking about the school board or the city council where we have non-partisan elections, what role do you play in that? I mean, I would imagine you still want Republicans serving in those positions, but do you have any role in that?
Yeah, well, it's becoming a bigger issue across the country, the non-partisan races, because let's be honest, there's kind of no such thing as a non-partisan race anymore, really.
Right.
Kendall County is a bit unique because we're so conservative here. We tend to attract mostly Republicans running for election. For instance, in the last general election, President Trump garnered 78% of the vote here, which is quite astronomical. Right. So there's not a huge Democrat footprint here. But in nonpartisan races across the country, school boards in particular, and city council, liberal policies are eking their way in, and that's a liberal strategy, is to get in place, start your policies at the local grassroots level. we keep an eye on that here in Kendall County. Like, we've interviewed all the candidates for mayor, for city council, for school board. We vet them. We kind of make sure they're Republican kind of thing. This year, we did not endorse any one of the candidates because they were all Republicans. There were some people who preferred one over another, but at the end of the day, kind of the policy is to stay away from that. But that is a controversial issue, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
There is a camp out there that says we should be picking the most conservative Republican.
Well, as you know, Dale's a former board trustee, and I'm a former city councilman. And so we've had this discussion before on the air. We've talked about that. Do we want to see partisan elections? And I've shared with people in the past that when I was in that role, I didn't want to see that. And my answer to that question was, well, no, you don't need that. Potholes are not Republican or Democratic. Police protection is not a Republican or Democratic issue. But I served on city council before we saw the meltdown with the riots and all the issue of the homelessness that was going on during the COVID experience. And I've come to change my position on that because now I think, well, wait a second. As you mentioned, you see all of these policies sort of seep in at the local level. And there really isn't such a thing as non-partisan councilmen or non-partisan board trustees. They have an opinion. They have a perspective, a political philosophy that guides them.
Right. And if we know that, it helps.
It does.
Yeah. But one thing that's always concerned me is in any state, and I think this applies to red states and blue states, when one party dominates, anybody that wants to get into politics will join that party, regardless of their belief.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like in Texas, there's people that complain about some Republicans, and I think that's legitimate. But I think you probably have the same thing in California and New York going the other way. And that's one thing that I don't know, I don't have an answer to this, but it bothers me that when you have a dominant party in a state, then people join it regardless of their ideology.
That's right. Like, I'm very well aware of that, and that's why we have to vet people, really. A hand on my heart, if we vet somebody and they don't have conservative Republican values after we vet them and sit down with them and interview them, I would recommend their opponent. Because I think we have a duty to do that, because you're right, there's a lot of pressure. Let's say Kendall County, which is 8-1, right, or 10-1 Republican. There's a lot of pressure to register and vote as a Republican.
Right.
Maybe you own a business here. It can impact your life. So you'll go Republican even though you might be a Democrat. So we do need to pay attention to that. We need to be vigilant on that for sure. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, and how do you define conservative nowadays? Because that's the other thing I think is that the term rhino, I can't remember when that first came out, but you've got both sides of the Republican Party. I mean, let's face it, we've got two sides now, right? There's the Trump side and then there's the other side, but they both throw that name at each other. And so how do you determine, like, do you have a personal feeling on what conservatism is, or is there a guidebook that you all use? Or
Number one principle, I think, for a true conservative is limited government. Stay out of our lives. Let us live our lives. We can spend our own money better than the government can spend our money. That being said, I think President Trump is a great example and a great leader of the Republican Party because, and this is what I tell people, is before you pass judgment on somebody, 2 years ago, would you have voted for Robert Kennedy? Would you have thought about he could possibly be a cabinet member? Tulsi Gabbard. I think President Trump is leading the party in the right direction by not being closed-minded and taking the best from everybody. Now, certainly Robert Kennedy is not a MAGA Republican, right? But he can serve a purpose, you know? So I just feel we cannot be so close-minded as to think that everybody has to think the exact same thing on every issue. Conservative, for me, I take it from, do you want the government in my life or not? Do parents have the right to find out education for their kids, or do you want the school to do that? I mean, there's certain issues like that are very clear, that whether you're a conservative or a liberal.
Yeah. I find it interesting, the Republican Party in Texas has a platform and it's got hundreds of marks on it and stuff like that. Honestly, I feel like what we should have is a set of principles, and then every one of those platforms would come naturally from your set of principles, like your discussion on, should parents have a say in what happens to their kids? Well, then everything about schools should probably come from that because I think that's right.
I find it almost embarrassing how many planks we have in the Republican Party. Like,
me too.
So I'm on the state Republican Executive Committee. I represent our district here, Senate district. So I'm involved in that whole process. We have like 260 planks or something. And some county parties are like, if you don't follow all 260 of them, you're not a Republican.
Right.
Which I think is insane. So President Trump, again, on this case, so I went to the national convention last July, Republican National Convention, and people were up in arms because President Trump basically took over that process at the convention and said, these are the 20 things that we care about. And they were broader. Some of them were a little bit more vague than the others, like on the right to life. But you know what? He got right down to the point. These are the 20 most important things. And I think that's the direction that we should be headed in.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're going to be the party of limited government, having 260 planks is the wrong direction.
Yeah. You limit your planks a little bit.
Right. Yeah. But also to hold everybody to that standard, and then you're not a Republican if you don't follow all 260. Just it doesn't make sense to me.
Some of them will conflict, and everybody has different balances on what they're willing to elevate one above the other.
And to be honest, the thing that I think a lot of the party misses at this point is, do you want to win or do you want to be known as the most conservative Republican Party? I'd rather win, because 80% Republican's better than any percent Democrat, in my view. And I know, but I'm a partisan guy, but that's how I feel. I don't think we should be turning away people who agree with us on 90% of the issues.
We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. This is Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. We're talking to Mike Wheeler. We'll come back in just a moment.
Boerne has its own bookshop. In fact, it's called the Boerne Bookshop. Hi, I'm Dale Adams, inviting you to get lost. Get lost in a good book in our relaxed and casual atmosphere. We have a wide and eclectic selection in the Boerne Bookshop, and we pride ourselves on finding what you are looking for. We do author meet and greets, host writing workshops, and can connect you with a good book club. And your young ones will absolutely love our kids section at the Boerne Bookshop. And while we want you to get lost, we're easy to find, as we're in the heart of Boerne at the back of the Richter Tavern building. We are the Boerne Bookshop. Welcome back to Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. We're talking to Mike Wheeler. Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself. You didn't grow up here, did you?
I did not. I've been in Texas for 6 years. Prior to Texas, I lived in New York City and in London. London in the last 12 years. I was a high-yield bond market trader. Okay. So it's bonds, not equities. Right. I'd like to say that if anybody's ever heard of Michael Milken, he's the guy who made our market famous. Yep. Not for the right reasons. We do things legally now. But I was a bond trader on Wall Street for a number of years. I studied companies. And then when it got time to get out of that business, I really just decided, where do we want to live? My kids were out of the house, and I'd always visited the Hill Country because I have relatives here. And I love the Hill Country, and so we decided this is where we want to settle down. And then I got immediately involved in the Republican Party, and it was very easy to get involved in the party because always looking for help. And so, I became the treasurer for the party under Buck Rogers. Mm-hmm. And then, unfortunately, Buck passed away, and so I took over the chair. And then last spring, I ran for the State Republican Executive Committee, and I beat the incumbent in that at the state convention last spring.
Oh, okay. We'll talk about that sometime. I lived in Lakenheath. We were stationed up there for a while. Mm-hmm. We went to London a few times. It was just a little more expensive than I was prepared
very
to
expensive
spend.
City.
One of my regrets is we never actually went to a theater production there because it was so expensive. Yeah. And I just said, I'm not going to spend that kind of money. Now I look back and I think, I really wanted to see Spam a lot. Never did.
Yeah. We loved London, and my boys were raised there. Oh, wow. But I love Texas. It was funny. I lived in New York City and London for whatever it was, 20 plus 30, almost 30 years. And overnight I get to Texas and I'm loving it. And because I grew up a country boy in New Hampshire, and I shed that city part of me overnight, and I love it here.
Yeah. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you're here.
Thank you.
And New Hampshire is an interesting state. I was up there a couple times in the last few years, and it's not what I expected. It's bookended by two states that are exactly what I expected, but New Hampshire reminded me of Texas in some ways.
In some ways.
I tell people that a lot, especially when I was growing up. When I grew up, it was a red state. and now it's kind of purple-blue, really. And I tell people, except for the weather, it's kind of Texas, because the people are very independent. And that's a lot of the reason why the politics don't really fit the whole purple thing, because they want to be left alone in New Hampshire for the most part. But yeah, New Hampshire's, I still love it there. It's a gorgeous place.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I've always had a question that I wanted to ask somebody, and it's about precinct chairman. And I've been tempted to do it, and I never did just because I got too much on my plate. What does a precinct chairman do?
So a precinct chair is, obviously they're responsible for, we have 17 precincts in Kendall County. Precinct chair is really responsible for that precinct to spread our values, to get out the vote. Like if I wanted to get out somebody in precinct 1, I would go to that precinct chair and say, listen, what can we do to get out the vote in your precinct? We monitor our statistics by precinct as well to see how much work we need to do in that precinct. So that's a big part of their job, is to inform people in the precinct, to get people involved, to get them out to vote. But the real big procedural responsibility is the precinct convention that happens once every 2 years. And they're in charge of their precinct. We get delegates to go to the state convention. They do resolutions that we send to the state party. And that's really it. So they're also part of they're voting members on the county executive committee. So anything that needs a vote, they will get a vote in that.
So if you want to get to know your neighbors, become a precinct chair.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it depends on, like, there's some precinct chairs that they work 20 hours a week on it, and there's some that don't. But it's really up to you how much work you want to put into it.
But there's some of the unsung heroes out there.
They really are. I mean,
nobody hears about them, but they do a lot of work.
There's no way a county chair could do what they have to do without the precinct chairs.
Right.
It's just impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
How does one become a precinct chair?
So you can either run for it. It is on the ballot every 2 years. Okay. And so that, I think, starts this September. You would talk to me and apply to get on the ballot as a precinct chair. You could ask me which precincts are open right now. We actually have, I think, 3 precincts open right now. So you'd give me a call and you'd say, is my precinct open? And I'd say yes or no. And then I'd give you the kind of the lay of the land, and you could just get on the ballot. It's that easy in September.
Yeah. And that is in the primary.
That runs all in next March. Right. Yeah. And it's a 2-year term.
Cool deal. So you don't have anything going on.
No, I'm sorry. This is not for me.
Yeah. You're a lot, put it this way, you're a lot busier in the presidential year.
That makes sense.
A lot busier. Although this March is going to be fascinating. I think we have a lot going on in Texas.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the races
it'll be interesting.
Next March. Yeah.
Now, what are some of the other positions within the Republican Party locally? You mentioned you were a treasurer, and I assume there's various other positions.
Yeah, there's I have somebody that helps me with who's kind of my point person on Get Out the Vote.
Okay.
That will help me organize poll watchers, help me organize the phone banks, help to call people, help me organize getting things printed and getting out for door knocking. And so I have people that do all that. I have a marketing team that helps with swag, like President Trump shirts and all the signs that you saw out on the street this past election probably came from us.
Okay.
So I have somebody who helps me order all that stuff and design all that. And then we have somebody in charge of the headquarters to make sure the headquarters is manned. We have somebody that helps with our market days, because we're at market days every month.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff. We have somebody helps me with the Lincoln Reagan dinner that we have that's our primary fundraiser once a year. So I'll have somebody that helps me with that. So there's a lot of stuff going on, really.
Well, no matter what somebody's interest is, they could probably find a spot within the party that would give them something to do that they enjoyed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you could, again, it's all about getting people involved. So if there's something you're interested in, come and talk to me about it. Like if your passion is election integrity, come talk to me about it. We'll figure something for you to do. We also, one of our jobs is to get election judges and clerks for the primary. So if you're interested in that, you come talk to me and we can get that as well.
Okay. There's
a lot to do. Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky in Kendall County that we're 50,000 people, because if you're in Bear County, they have a headquarters it's every day of the week, I think it's staffed. They have so much. They have like 750 precinct chairs in Bexar County. We have 17.
Yeah,
Wow.
and somehow we get it done, don't we?
We get it done, yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the Republican Party and the Republican Club?
And that's different in every county, but here in Kendall County, the club is kind of I'd say the face, the out face of the party, like the Kendall County Club and the women's KCRW as well.
Yeah.
They're kind of the people-facing
Social side
of the party. And the party is more kind of behind the scenes. It's different under different leadership, but for me, it's not so much that we're the thing that people think of. We're the backbone of it, really. And so take, for instance, one of the things that I've kind of done since I've taken over is I have a pretty large focus on scholarship. That age group, that 30 to 50-year-old, is a part of the party that I really want to grow. And so they tend to be parents, right? And I want people in this county to know that the Republican Party cares about our citizens.
Yeah.
We're not just a political party. We actually care about our people as well. So we will get together with the Kendall County Republican Women and the club, and we will all put money together and hand out scholarships. We just approved, I think it was up to 11 scholarships for this
Wow.
year. Yeah. So the club will have quarterly meetings. The women's group has it every month. They'll have great speakers that come. I think actually next week there's a great women's club. There's a great speaker, but they always have good speakers. They're always educational, much like your own.
Yeah. Okay, so if somebody does want to get involved and contact you about opportunities, where do they go?
So my name's Michael Wheeler. And of course, my email is mwheeler01@gmail.com. Please get a hold of me. My number is 210-505-5210. We will find something for you to do. We have our headquarters. Right now, we're on limited hours. I think it's Fridays and Saturdays. You can stop by and see us. You can always just get a hold of me. I'll get you on the distribution list, and we'll make sure you find out exactly what's going on.
Okay. Is there a website?
Yeah, we have the website as well, www.kcrptx.com. KCRPTX.com.
Okay. Yeah. And the book I've got for today is about a Republican president that probably most people haven't really heard about, is President Garfield, because he actually wasn't president for very long. But he actually did a huge amount of work before he was president about trying to bring our country back together after the Civil War. And he did a lot of work to try and bring people back together. And actually, after his assassination, it sort of took that to get people to say, okay, we need to cool heads down a little bit. And so this is a pretty good biography by C.W. Goodyear. So we got it at the Bernie Bookshop if you're interested in learning a little bit about an unknown president.
Hey, folks, if you like what you hear on the show and you want to get some more of it, Dale and I would like to invite you to Whiskey and Wisdom, a new book club that started late last year, and we meet every other month.
And that would be the third Thursday of June, August, October, and December.
Please join us. We're going to have an assortment of whiskeys there and a great conversation about a very interesting book. Hope to see you there.
So that's it for today with Ceasefire. Thanks for listening. If you've missed any of it, you can always go to BernieRadio.com or to Spotify or any of those other places where you listen to podcasts and check us out. Thank you.
Bernie has its own bookshop. In fact, it's called the Bernie Bookshop. Hi, I'm Dale Adams, inviting you to get lost. Get lost in a good book in our relaxed and casual atmosphere. We have a wide and eclectic selection in the Bernie Bookshop, and we pride ourselves on finding what you're looking for. We do author meet and greets, host writing workshops, and can connect you with a good book club. And your young ones will absolutely love our kids section at the Bernie Bookshop. And while we want you to get lost, we're easy to find, as we're in the heart of Bernie at the back of the Richter Tavern building. We are the Bernie Bookshop.